very ill right now. She has been at Encompass in Bakersfield for the past week or so. She hopes she can come home on Thursday. I talked to her son, and he asked that we please pray for his mother, Barbara Older.
Prayers that God's healing hand will be on Barbara and for speedy recovery. Yes, she's not been able to be with us for some time, but certainly is very much a part of this community. Enjoy and concern.
God is with us. We are not alone.
Just prayers for Molly Sherman. Well, this we'll share more if you like.
Yeah. Molly, and yeah, she's on my list, but go ahead and share now. Molly, some of you know she's had some challenges with medication since her heart attack a year ago. And recently has had increasing struggles, even with her breathing, and ended up going to the doctor, and the doctor has now slashed many of her medications in half and discovered, yes, there was a problem with her meds. Hopefully that will correct the issues. In the meanwhile, she's staying with her son and daughter-in-law in Bakersfield so that she's not alone. So continued prayers for Molly, and prayers that this is the answer and she will get back that energy that we all love so much. Enjoy and concern.
God is with us. We are not alone.
A couple of prayers this morning. First, I want to pray for my brother-in-law. His name's Luigi, lives outside of Tokyo. He has had Parkinson's and he's experiencing quite a bit of deterioration lately. He also has cancer that he's been undergoing chemotherapy. And so I just want to pray for him. He's going through difficult times. On a happier note, my wife Debbie had a medical procedure last Monday. The good news is the procedure's results were very good. Very good outcome, some good news for her that had made her quite anxious. The bad news is on the way into the hospital, the procedure in Bakersfield, she tripped on the sidewalk, took a bad fall. She's got bruises all over the place from the fall. But she's recovering, she's fine, but it's like when it rains, it pours.
I'm going to start with just prayer concern for Enrique as he deals with these debilitating health concerns. And prayers not only for him, but for all those who love him. May God's peace be with him and wisdom with the doctors as they look for ways of treating him moving forward. Enjoy and concern.
God is with us. We are not alone.
And then, you know, I caught it crosses here between the celebration and with Debbie, but certainly prayers of celebration. The larger concerns have been relieved, and prayers of concern that she now heals from this recent fall. May God be with you.
I do have to add one piece of joy for her. Because her procedure was Monday morning, I didn't have to watch the inauguration.
Enjoy, concern, and celebration.
God is with us. We are not alone.
Join me in prayer. Merciful God of love, we cry out to you this morning. These definitely are challenging times. We lift up all those who right now are living in states of anything from confusion to absolute panic. And we pray not only for your wisdom, for your peace, for your love to be extended by those in power, but also by us. Give us the desire, the passion, and the tools to meet needs wherever we can. To be your voice, challenging those places that your children are being harmed. Help us to be your arms and hands, offering embraces of comfort. May we be your feet, walking the miles necessary until our world understands the truth of your love. We pray, God, not only for our country, but we've watched as what was supposed to be a ceasefire in Israel and Gaza has now resulted in increasing deaths of innocent people, including children as young as 2 years of age. As people told that it was safe to return to their homes, were gunned down. God, in times like these, it's hard to even know how to pray beyond, Lord, have mercy. We're told that there are those times when words aren't enough, and in those times, your Spirit can pray through us. Hear the message that's in our hearts, the message that we can't even, the request that we can't even give voice to. Hear. Hold it in your gentle hands. And still speaking, God, we need to hear your voice now more than any time in our lives. God, we also give thanks for those places where we are witnessing your love extended. We're watching as an outpouring of care and concern, meeting needs of those that have faced and continue to face wildfires in our state. We've seen people out on the streets providing help to immigrants that are fearful of what is in store, providing them with sound information, places they can find legal help. We give thanks for people who are willing to risk their own safety, their own freedom for the lives of others. God, we leave all in your hands. In the name of the one that is our hope. Amen.
scripture reading today is Luke 4:14 to 21. Then Jesus, filled with the power of the Spirit, returned to Galilee, and a report about him spread through all the surrounding country. He began to teach in their synagogues and was praised by everyone. When he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because God has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. God has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And he rolled up the synagogue, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed on him. Then he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing."
Let me in prayer again. God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of each and every one of our hearts be acceptable to you, our hope and our Redeemer. Last Monday, 24.6 million people gathered around their TVs and online to watch yet another inauguration. This year, the inaugural address was delivered for the first time from the Capitol Rotunda, a space designed to reflect the ancient Roman Pantheon. The Pantheon, word Pantheon, translates as all the gods. And it was used to promote the emperor's power and legitimacy. It was filled with statues of the emperors and emblems of imperial power. It also represented an alliance between the gods and the Roman rulers, signifying their divine authority. In his inaugural address, the incoming president delineated his core values and priorities, and he laid out his mission in relatively concise terms. Terms of which I'm sure everyone here is familiar. I'm not going to go through those. But today's reading from the gospel, I love it when the gospel readings in our lectionary just happen to coincide so beautifully with what's happening in our world. The reading from the Gospel of Luke shares the story of another inauguration. Here's the story of another inauguration. The inauguration of Jesus' ministry. And I invite you, as we move forward, to reflect on similarities and differences between these two events. How do various choices we make reflect and or inform our attitudes and our actions? Jesus' inauguration had a lot less fanfare. No parade, no formal banquet. He wasn't flanked by wealthy, powerful dignitaries. And the event didn't take place in a seat of power. Jesus' inaugural address was presented to common people, residents of a marginalized community. And it took place in the modest surroundings of the synagogue, a place of worship, a place of education and community gatherings. Now, Jesus, too, laid out his core values and his priorities. He provided a mission statement in concise terms. And Jesus, like the inaugural on Monday, also claimed to be anointed by God for the purpose of fulfilling a particular mission. In case anyone missed that point. But the core values and priorities that informed Jesus' mission were not populist ideals, not by a long shot. I can tell you a little later in this chapter, the town tries to run him off a hill for his unpopular perspectives. But for right now, they're listening and they're happy to hear what he has to say. Jesus begins with, God has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. The poor? He goes on, God has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free. Now, the oppressed has taken on a vastly different meaning in today's culture. People across our country are lining up to speak at the meetings of various governing bodies, claiming that as Christians, they are oppressed by the freedom of others to live in a way that doesn't align with their particular dogma. I don't think that's quite what Jesus meant. The people Jesus spoke of were people who had been forced to the fringes of society due to different cultures, community connections, and other factors. And Jesus concerned himself primarily with oppressive systems and practices that exploited and perpetuated poverty. Jesus goes on to say, God has sent me to proclaim the year of the Lord. And what is that? Jesus is reading from Isaiah 61, a passage known as the Servant Song. And the Lord's favor speaks of a Judaic practice known as the year of Jubilee. Every 50th year, there was a redistribution of resources. Try putting that idea before Congress. Slaves were freed, debts were forgiven, land returned to its previous owners. I love the way one commentator interprets this servant song. Fred Craddock, respected theologian and pastor that we lost a few years ago. But he says, the Christ is God's servant who will bring to reality the longing and hope of the poor, the oppressed, and the imprisoned, and will usher in the amnesty, the liberation, and the restoration associated with the year of Jubilee. Then Jesus does something really odd. He preaches the shortest sermon in history. Today, this is fulfilled in your hearing. But Jesus isn't talking about justice and liberation for a single year. He's talking talking about a whole new way of living, a new age in which we each place service towards others above individual gain. And he's saying this new era already exists. We just have to live into it. And therein lies the challenge. How do we live like Jesus? How can we consistently love with a love that is willing to let go of our own gain for the benefit of others? Ouch. How do we truly embrace the core values and priorities that drive God's mission for this world? Maybe the answer is found not in the sensational aspects of life, but in the simple and the familiar. Keep in mind, Jesus began with the familiar. Luke tells us Jesus went to the synagogue, as was his custom. As he begins this important work, he goes to the same place where he grew up listening to the rabbis teach. He goes to the place where he is known and loved. He goes to that place where he hears and shares the ancient stories in ways that are familiar and meaningful and made relevant for a new era. How do we begin to follow this bigger-than-life Jesus who was still willing to place servanthood above all else? I'm going to suggest we do so by making it a habit to gather together with others who are seeking to do the same. You had to know I was going there. The writer to Hebrews recognized this when he wrote, "Let us consider each other carefully for the purpose of sparking love and good deeds. Don't stop meeting together with other believers, which some people have gotten into the habit of doing. Instead, encourage each other." When we gather as a community of faith, we share through readings and songs and ritual the old stories that undergird our faith, and we share them with new meaning and relevance. When we gather together, we practice servanthood by serving each other. Here in this place, we comfort, we encourage, we uplift and empower one another to keep on going until the core values, priorities, and mission Jesus proclaimed are entrenched in the very heart of our being. Here, we work as God's servants, seeking to bring hope to the poor, the oppressed, and the imprisoned, as we help to usher in amnesty and liberation for all God's creatures. We've been presented this week with two very different sets of core values and priorities and two conflicting missions. Which direction will we choose to follow? Amen.
We're going to be singing The Summons. It is up on the screen, also in your bulletin, and also on page 2130 in the little skinny black book if you're wanting to look at something. And we're going to be singing 1 through 4 verses, and then we're going to be coming back to the 5th verse, so save the 5th.
just a minute here to rearrange. We need to get you a better music stand. This morning, we're going to do a couple of things. One is, if there are people, and I think we have at least one who has been attending for a while, but has never formally joined membership, and that's fine. You can do that. You don't have, voting privileges is the big thing, but there are those that are fine with that, and that's okay. You are every bit as important to this congregation, with or without. But this morning, we're going to have an opportunity to accept new members in covenant. And the second thing then we're going to do when we're through with new members, that didn't sound very well, sound right. When we're finished with that portion of the service, we are going to move on to reaffirmation of covenant for those who have been members, but we are reaffirming those covenants and reestablishing our membership roles, which you've been hearing about for some time. We did it back in September. We're going to do another time now, and we'll probably have one more opportunity a little later in the year. So if you were not here the last time and are a member but were not able to do your reaffirmation at that time, and if you have not joined in the past 2 years, if you've joined in the past 2 years, you're good. But if you have not joined in the past 2 years, then we're going to invite you to do a reaffirmation. It's very simple. It's painless. So at this point, I would invite anyone who is wanting to join today, covenant with us in membership. Come on. Okay, this is June Baylong, and I'm going to begin with a little welcome. You're already here, but I'm going to begin with a little welcome anyway. Thank you. And June just said to me, mind if I share with them? She just said to me, I finally found my church.
That's what I said when I joined.
I asked her, as I always do, about if she'd been baptized, and she said yes, but many years ago. Let me tell you, baptism was once and done. No matter where, no matter by who, it's a once and done. Dear friends, today we rejoice in your journey of faith that has brought you to this time and place. We give thanks for every community of faith that has been your spiritual home in the past, and the spiritual mentors who have guided you on your way. We celebrate your presence today in this household of faith. This place where we are seekers and servants growing together in God's transforming love. I'm going to ask you some questions, and then I'll do a response. June, do you seek to grow in God's transforming love as you follow in the way of Jesus? If so, say, I do. Are you open to the movement of the Spirit in your life? And say, I am. Will you join with us as a church as we seek to follow God's direction in our midst? Will you welcome and respect each person's freedom to interpret God's truth as God gives them each light and wisdom? If so, say, I will with the help of God.
I will with the help of God.
I'm going to invite Nancy to come up.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Franklin. Will you participate in the life and mission of this diverse and inclusive community of God, people praying and working with us in ministry together?
I will.
Will you share regularly with us in the worship of God and financial support of our ministries?
I will.
Will you offer your talents to our work as the Spirit leads us to serve the community and the world?
I will.
With God's help,
With God's help.
we will help you too.
Welcome.
Do you want us to, all right,
I'm
so
going to
together?
invite the congregation to join in this welcome.
We welcome you with joy as partners in the common life of this congregation. We pledge to you our friendship and prayers as we grow together in God's transforming love. We give thanks that you join us now as fellow seekers and servants. Welcome.
Okay, now, if you were here in September and you did a reaffirmation of faith, you're good. If you joined in the past 2 years, so Dave, you're covered. Otherwise, I invite you to stand. But you didn't participate. Do you want to participate? That would be wonderful. Thank you. I was wondering, I was missing you. All right. I do need a list of names for this.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
please make sure we have. For a time, you have traveled together in covenantal relationship with one another, seeking to grow in God's love, inspiring, uplifting, and caring for one another while honoring and respecting each person's place on life's journey. Is it your desire to reaffirm this covenant? If so, say it is.
It is.
Do you continue to pledge your friendship and prayers to one another as you grow together in God's transforming love? If so, say, I do with the help of God.
I do with the help of God.
Will you continue to participate in the life and mission of this diverse and inclusive community, praying and working together in the ministry and sharing regularly in the worship of God? I will with the help of God.
I will with the help of God.
Will you, to the best of your ability, continue to offer your gifts of money, time, and talent to support the ministries of this congregation in service of the community and the world? And say, I will with the help of God.
I will with the help of God.
You may be seated. Your bulletins from this point forward are not correct. So, yeah. We had to make some changes to accommodate other changes, so. As a a prayer. As a prayer, closing this time of covenant, I invite you to join in this last verse of the summons. Lord, your summons echoes true when you call my name. Let me turn and follow you and never be the same. In your company I'll go where your love and footsteps show. Thus I'll move and live and grow. Now is your time to give back. Just a bit of the gifts that God has given us. If the ushers would now come, they're going to be taking the offering from the back to the front. I invite you to join in a unison prayer of blessing for all that we have received here this morning. God, we praise you for calling us to both seek and serve you, and for gathering us into this church. Together may we grow in your spirit, building one another up in love, and ministering to the world as followers of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Today, just a little instruction before we kind of transition from this portion of the service to what is to follow. For anyone that isn't aware, and June, I don't know if you were aware, but we have a business meeting today. Oh. But it's not a businessy business meeting. It's going to be a fun business meeting. Our annual meeting is in May, but right now our budget is still on the same cycle. We haven't moved that yet. So at this point, we need to get approval of the new budget that Dave has just worked so hard on and done a wonderful job. And you're going to hear more about some little issues that we're going to have to deal with, but nonetheless, he's going to present that. Nancy will have some conversation with you, and then you're going to hear some updates and some plans for moving forward on the capital campaign we've been talking about for months. We are ready to start a portion of it, and so things have not quite developed the way we had hoped, because we've had lots of people sick, including me, since New Year's. So things kind of got, anyway, they did not happen the way we originally planned. But nonetheless, we're going to do this. We're going to start out here in the sanctuary and present all of this. Then we have potluck ready over in Friendship Hall. So we're all going to move over to Friendship Hall. You'll have opportunity for discussion over there while we share a meal, and then we will have votes. That was the plan? Okay, I want to make sure I didn't change it. All right.
I'm sure whatever you change, Pastor, it's going to be just fine.
It has been an event, yes.
I have a request from people online to do Zoom. Can we maybe set up?
The Zoom is set up.
Zoom set
Oh,
up.
yeah. If you could.
Okay, so it is on, and the PowerPoint is also set up for them to follow along.
Okay, I'm texting because
It's okay. Are you saying they don't have the link?
Let me ask her.
Who is it?
Yes, Linda sent the link out this morning.
And Lori, both Linda and Lori.
Yeah, they have the link. They did, Linda sent it out to everyone this morning.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll tell them.
And I will have that PowerPoint up as soon as we close out. So,
Okay.
and
I'll tell them.
I just invite you to, as you sing, or to listen, not to sing, to listen to this closing hymn. It's called Servant Song.
Will you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too. We are pilgrims on a journey. We are travelers on the road. We are here to help each other on the island bed. I will hold a grass line for you in the nighttime of your fear. I will hold my hand up to you, speak the peace you long to hear. I will weep when you are weeping, when you laugh, I'll laugh with you. I will share your joy and sorrow till we sing this journey through. When we sing to God in heaven, we shall find such harmony. For the all we've known together, all Christ's harmony. Will you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant.
So we have a few people on Zoom, and on the Zoom, we have the PowerPoint that all of you are going to see in real time. They will be able to follow along on the Zoom on my computer. YouTube is over there with Carol Rush, all right? So we're trying to make sure that people who are unable to participate in person still have the opportunity to see as much as possible and participate as much as possible. And I think that that becomes even more important to all of us as we may be experiencing different reasons why we can't physically come into church. So we're going to start with Dave. Dave is our treasurer and has done a fabulous job of setting up the budget for you to take a look at. Now, remember, the budget is separate from our annual meeting right now. we are going to realign it, but right now we want to make sure that the budget is available to everybody. So do you want to begin, Dave? Why don't you? Maybe get a microphone, since you don't have a playground voice. All right?
All right, everyone, for those of you that don't know, I'm your treasurer, Dave Lashley. And so Pastor said we're going to have some fun, so let's have some fun with numbers. All right, Nancy, thank you.
No, it's actually Pastor who has it.
Oh, thank you, Pastor. So looking at the PowerPoint up there, we have contributions in our 2024 budget. What we had expected was $48,940. We actually took in $56,796. So give you guys a hand, give yourself a hand. Thank you for that. Because of that, I was comfortable in raising our expectation for the next year to $61,560 in contributions. So we can't do that without you guys, so thank you in advance. Building use and for our renters and our adjacent rental property, you can see what we budgeted for in '24. And in actuality, we took in a little bit more with people that rented Friendship Hall. We forecast a little bit more in the next year at $37,092. Miscellaneous, very small amount. If we have some kind of special event or something, we get a little bit from that. So our total income is expected is $99,052. We have our expenses. We have salary for pastor and for staff, and then you can see the total. It's up a little bit more from the previous year. We were able to give pastor a little bit of a raise, so I'm sure she's appreciative of that. For admin expenses, we were over what we actually forecasted. So I did forecast a little bit lower for the next year because we've been good in managing expenses. The next line down, you can see we pay a lot for our what's called multi-peril insurance. So anything to do with the building and property and their thus forth, I guess the word I would use. We're going to pay $10,000 for that this year. Building and grounds, we spend a lot of money on building and grounds and maintenance. That's a large part of our expenses. You can see for repairs in '24, it actually was quite a bit.
Please mute.
We anticipate increased expenses for this upcoming year. So you can see that at $10,000 there. Utilities, look how high they were in '24 for the budget, but in actuality, we were good with utilities. Overall, we did very well. I'm forecasting a little bit higher for the next year, for this year, because we do, hopefully, if everything goes well, Field will continue to rent from us, and we should see a little increase in utilities there because of that. Maintenance overall, we did good, less than expected, but I am raising it up for this year because we do anticipate, like I said, repairs and building maintenance are going to increase. There's your total, subtotal for building and grounds. It consistently goes higher every year, and we're going to see that because we have aging infrastructure and we will need to be making repairs. Ministry expense, we forecasted $1,450 for the year in '24. We actually did little, only a fraction of that, half. So I increased it because there's things we'd like to do that we don't normally do. We're very frugal when it comes to ministry expense. So I increased that a little bit. Other expenses adjusted down a little bit. So you can see that we have a balanced budget with expenses and income at $99,052. So again, we can't do this without you guys. So thank you in advance. And I think I'm done until we do
Actually,
questions.
let's take a look.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. We have more PowerPoints.
This was
All right.
simply another way.
I still have a microphone, lady.
All right, good. Go for it.
All right, I forgot we gotta do this. Nancy and I went over this last night, I forgot. So you can see contributions is 2/3 of our income. So that's in the blue. Building use is the other major component. And that's our rental property and our Friendship Hall facility use. But again, look at the contributions. That's from you guys. That's your helping support the church, so thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, expenses. Let's look at Pastor. Of course, she has a little chunk there. Then we have building and grounds, which is our other major component. Admin cost, running the day-to-day operations, of course. Support staff, and then your ministry and other. But so your big hitters again, of course, are the building and grounds and admin costs. I think utilities are part of the admin cost, if I'm correct. Any other fun slides to look at?
I'd like to add something real quick. Oftentimes when people look at these things, and especially when you see ministry costs so low and they think, well, so why are we just supporting buildings? The reality is, we kind of talk about ministry because the only way we can think to separate out those kind of programming costs. In reality, everything there is ministry. That's what provides us the opportunity to gather here, to worship, to make plans for things that we're going to go out and do. So it's all ministry.
So let's take a look at the next slide, if we could. What we wanted to do is highlight something for you. And that is that Pastor has worked with us for about 3 years. She now has a new contract and a small raise. The reason that I think it's important that we emphasize this is because it's still below what the recommended salary is for a half-time pastor. And in addition, when the board was rewriting her contract, we realized she's also putting in 4 more hours than is supposed to be for a half-time minister. So I think we need to keep that in mind as we move forward. Sometimes we might say to ourselves, what? She's not here every single Sunday. Well, no kidding. She isn't paid to be here every Sunday. Could we take a look at the next one? As of January 2025, all of our renters are nonprofits. The only for-profit group has been told that they may no longer rent from us. It's all nonprofits, and we may lose Field. You know, you don't know how things are going to continue along in the coming year. Field is pulled in lots and lots of different directions right now. And Patrick is working with them to see if we will continue our contract and develop a new contract, but that is not for sure. So I think it's important for us to remember that and take that into consideration. I'm having a lot of trouble with the Zoom, and that has to do with the Wi-Fi for this facility. So as we move into the next section, I want us to be reminded of Paul's habitual gratitude for others in his prayers. Let us thank God for the people he has placed in our lives. As Dave pointed out, we thank you for your generosity. We give thanks to God always for you all, making mention of you in our prayers. And the next slide is about the capital campaign. Now, the capital campaign, as many of you realize, has shifted to a more project-based organization. And what we are really trying to do together is to figure out how can we create the most welcoming of spaces in our sanctuary. And so let's take a look together at this kind of 3 stages, 3 steps. The first one being at the bottom, if you could take a look at that, Phase 1, the narthex, chancel, and stairwell, and moving up Phase 2, and moving up further, Phase 3. Now, those of you who are looking at this from the viewpoint of, what would I start with? Maybe looking at it and thinking, wait, I want the whole shazam, right? I want the whole thing to be done at once. Some parts of it are going to be done at once. For instance, look at the very top under electrical upgrade. We all know we need to upgrade the electricity in here in order to do the things that we want to be able to do. But I think it's important for us to really think about that bottom phase for just a moment. When I think of it, I think of the dreamers that have been working together to come up with what would be a welcoming space in the narthex. The narthex is what you walk into, right? And we want the narthex to be a place where people feel like, as June said this morning, I'm home. I found my place. So, Jan, maybe you could talk us through the beautiful paintings that you've made of the narthex and the work that you and the transformers have done. Would you mind?
No, I would not, but I'd like to do it from here if you don't mind.
That's not a problem at all.
We began meeting the
Jan.
Transformers, and we named ourselves that.
I need to use this because some people have trouble hearing.
Are we on here? Yes. We began a process of 4 of us, including Julie Bullock, Marlene Rodriguez, myself, and Jane Fickus, who couldn't be here today, to look at the spaces that we worship in, starting with the narthex, of course, because we all come in that way. Well, maybe some come the other way. To see, as Nancy just said, what would be something that would not only be welcoming, but would cause people to feel at home, as June apparently does, we're grateful for her, and want to stay and join in this wonderful congregation. So we sat here a lot. Kind of don't look at that too closely right now because it's sort of misleading. We took our inspiration for everything that we planned from this most beautiful stained glass window. This is probably original to this church, so it's close to 100 years old. It is a brilliant treasure for us, and the colors change throughout the day. And that was our focus as to where we developed this plan, that single window that we all see. Because everything that really happens of importance as far as sermons or music comes from that direction. So we wanted to pull that back to the way we enter the church. So what you have here, you gonna go back, Nancy?
No, I got it there.
Oh, okay. Wrong one.
That's the one you want the other one?
Yes, please. Okay, this is actually the narthex, and it looks a little weird from your perspective. There's only actually one piece of furniture and one chair. It's, if I could fold that in half, what you would be seeing is, you can all look backward and you can see our arched window on the right in the painting. And there's the bottom end of the side view. So off to the right of the little chair there is the bell pull, and then those are our double doors right over here, where we like to come in when we're allowed to by weather. On the left-hand side of that is actually the side view of what you're seeing on the wall of crosses. And that's the wall you see directly when you come up the double doors, the stairs there. That does not yet exist, although Jim Dinsmore's beautiful cross is actually on the wall. So our vision is, let's make a statement when people walk in. This is a church that loves Jesus. And we want to portray that with a collection of beautiful crosses. Nancy, were you able to bring yours today? No, I remembered a lot of other things.
I actually have several with me, but we're not going to spend that much time. These are all
cabbage rolls.
She has nothing else to do. Actually, I painted it. It's the top right cross is a semblance of this beautiful art piece that Nancy might have brought today had she not been so lazy. Anyway, so what we're doing is changing out the roll-top desk. This is not an office, this is a welcoming space. So when we make these changes, we would like to purchase a piece of furniture that is useful and simple in style and fits the dark wood from up front. And you can see the little gift bags. Jim, did you get a bag? We're going to give you one before you leave. They're down at the bottom. Something that doesn't have extraneous things on it because it's a small space. It's only 7 by 7. There's, on the arched window there's a film that we can put on that is very wonderful in cutting down glare. And it just has a little bit of color here and there. Nothing fantastic. Marlene is our wonderful quilt person, and she has been kind enough to add quilts to that window to cut some of that glare. On the left of the left-hand cross wall, you can imagine that's the stairway going down to the single door. And I wasn't going to draw that. Stairs are not fun to draw. Okay. The color there is not reading too clearly on there. It's a little more vibrant, and I guess I could show it because it's right with me.
Just please, if you would leave something close up, I made some copies for us to take a look at and pass them along.
Again, the color looks a lot darker. It is this color right here. If you want to look at what I'm holding. It's called Pitter Patter. Thank you. It's just a piece of poster board.
Please pass them along. Please pass them along.
Thank you for doing that, Nancy. Appreciate it.
Of course. I aim to serve.
I get two. Okay. Then, going forward into the next slide, you're looking at it right now. Please do not be too concerned about my perspective there, but it's somewhat recognizable, I hope, to you as to what you're looking at right now. We will take that same blue and only change the back wall, again, to bring your eyes directly to the stained glass. Obviously, the hangings will change with the seasons of the year for the church, but essentially, that's what we thought. How could you miss that? It's beautiful, it's calming, it's peaceful. I think we need a lot of that in our lives right now. You'll notice there is a pew in the bottom right. We don't intend to move our pews backwards, but I didn't know how else to show it. So in our future plans, we would like to reupholster or actually redo the pew cushions in kind of a mushroom neutral color that will not be shocking. And as you can also see, the carpet would be included in this plan. And again, it would be a very neutral color that doesn't show dirt. It's an industrial carpet that is easy to clean and that will last for a long time. So our whole idea is to keep everything neutral and calming. The wall colors will change somewhat, just a tiny bit darker, and that's actually the paint on both of those that we got. As far as other things, these little fans up here, we all know don't do too much, so our plan would include large, about 6-foot diameter fans with remotes that will drop down. They'll be on a pole, and maybe somebody knows the proper term for that, but they'll be the 3 in that much larger size. We plan in an Arvex to replace the lighting in there with something more lovely. And you will see that thanks to Chris Fickus, we do have a new clock that I hope can be seen from the front. Julie, can you see it?
Believe it or not, I actually can.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Does that mean you want me to pay attention for my sermons?
Nothing was said about that, Pastor. Anyway, so that is actually part of the plan, and Chris was nice enough to put that up for us yesterday. I appreciate that very much. So that's about.
Okay.
You want to address
Thank you.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Go
One
ahead.
last thing that's actually kind of a large thing. Yes. One thing we really would like to do to put a little more, I don't know what the word is for it, we'd like to replace these draperies, which are like everything quite elderly, and they would be replaced, and they're actually at my house, but because of the snow, I decided not to bring the actual. We're going to replace these with long 84-inch drapes, which would make them extend above and below the window frames, not by the musicians, of course, but they'll be white. The pews themselves, as you can see in that one slide, will be also painted white, and the rods will be dark metal with a very, like an interesting knob, but not distracting. We have a lot of wrought iron in our fencing outside, the railings that go up here into the chancel, and we would like to kind of play on that Spanish feel without going over the top. We're not intending to look like Santa Barbara here, but so those black rods would hold those white draperies, and I think they'll be very elegant, coupled with everything. The what?
The wall hangings.
Okay, well, thank you.
Marlene wants to say something.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, we also intended for the rods that hold the
Yes.
wall hangings and the quilts to match those, so that it's uniform.
Very nice idea.
And cohesive.
Thank you.
Right,
I have a question.
thank you.
Yes.
Are we going to cover the whole?
Marlene?
We have talked about the whole. My brain is working on a quilt, but that may not necessarily be the final solution to the whole, but I'm working on something to at least address it for now.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. What hole are you talking about?
That one
Where the speakers were, for the organ.
up above
Oh, that.
It wasn't always a hole. All right, so, a couple of things. Well, first of all, let us all thank the Transformers. They have done a marvelous job. I think it's important for you to understand. They are people with so much artistic ability among all of them. And in addition, we have Ruben here as well with expertise in the capital campaign. Part of what it needs to be understood is this. All this money is not coming just from the congregation. Sure, we're going to do fundraisers and things like that. But we are also applying for grants. And one of the grants is due January 31st. And I've been working on it with Pastor Kesslin. And that has to do with the Wi-Fi in here, the technology in here, which is just dreadful. These poor people trying to watch this on Zoom have been kicked off Zoom at least 5 times during the time that we've been talking. So we are going to adjourn as soon as the pastor has us adjourn, but we will answer more questions while we eat. Thank you.
I just want to acknowledge one other, Ruben was part of that capital campaign committee, Sue and Susan. And while you aren't seeing them in all of this, what got us to this point and deciding, okay, here's the way we need to go, was because of a number of hours that the 3 of them spent, brainstorming possible fundraising opportunities. How much can the congregation actually bring in? What are we going to be able to do within the realm of ability of this congregation? So it's often those people behind the scenes, and I don't want them to get, left out. So certainly congratulate them, thank them, because they did their work as well. I'm going to close this and move over to the sanctuary with this statement and then a short blessing. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars, to change the world. And Harriet, Tubman was certainly a dreamer. Gracious God, we are so thankful for this time together this morning, this time of worship, this time of sharing. And as we move from this place, may that same attitude move with us over to Friendship Hall as we share a meal and continue our discussion and our business meeting as well. Bless the food. Bless everyone who was involved in bringing it to our tables, from those who prepared it to the field workers in the field that made it possible. Amen.
Pastor? One quick announcement, if I may. Because this is budget and all the buildings and things need to be done, the doorway to the Christian Education Building by the garden is not functioning today. Please do not put your key in it and force it and try and open it. It will not open. We're working on it, we're going to get it fixed, but please use the other door by the parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, that has been a problem this morning. All right. Meet you all over in Friendship Hall.